Captain Mark Reynolds stood on the bridge of the HSS Defiance, his eyes fixed on the main screen. The stars seemed colder today. He ran a hand through his graying hair and took a deep breath. "Status report," he said, his voice steady despite the weight pressing down on his shoulders. "All systems operational, Captain," replied First Officer Anna Hayes from her station. "But we're still running on backup power for the rear shields." The Defiance wasn't much to look at. A mid-class destroyer with more patches than original hull plating. 10 years ago, it would have been sent to the scrapyard. Now, it was humanity's last real warship. The door to the bridge slid open, and Lieutenant Tom Parker rushed in, his uniform wrinkled, and his eyes bright with excitement. "Captain, I've done it." Parker held up a data chip like it was made of gold. "The targeting system modifications. They're ready." Reynolds nodded but didn't smile. Parker's modifications weren't approved by Fleet Command. They weren't even legal under military regulations, but legal didn't matter much anymore. Not when humanity was losing the war so badly. "Will they work?" Reynolds asked. Parker's smile faltered. "They might. They should. I've pushed the predictive algorithms beyond safety limits, but if we can shave even half a second off our firing response." "Half a second won't save us against a Nova judge," Hayes said, not looking up from her station. The Nova judges, Reynolds suppressed a shiver. The artificial intelligences that commanded the Crimson Imperium's massive warships had never lost a battle. They calculated, judged, and executed with perfect precision. One by one, human colonies had fallen to them. One by one, the judges had determined that humans were unworthy of continued existence in the galaxy. "Get those modifications installed," Reynolds told Parker. "I want them tested before we reach the jump point." "Yes, sir." Parker hurried away, nearly colliding with engineer Kate Wilson as she entered the bridge. Wilson's hands were stained with engine grease, and dark circles hung under her eyes. "Captain, we need to talk about the reactor." Reynolds gestured to his ready room, and they stepped inside. Once the door closed, Wilson's professional demeanor cracked. "I can't keep pushing it like this," she said. "The coolant system is barely holding together. If we make another emergency jump, can we make it to the Orion sector?" Reynolds asked. Wilson hesitated. "Yes, probably. But after that, I can't promise anything." "After that might not matter," Reynolds said quietly. Wilson stared at him. "The reports are that bad." "Worse." He activated a small holographic display on his desk. A tactical map showed the collapse of humanity's defensive line in the Orion sector. Red markers, crimson ships, swarmed like angry insects around the failing blue dots of human forces. "They've broken through our last major defense line. New Terra is exposed." Reynolds zoomed in on a small blue-green planet surrounded by defensive stations. 8 million civilians. The evacuation has started, but they need time. Wilson understood immediately, and we're going to give them that time. It wasn't a question. Orders came in an hour ago. The Defiance is to engage the Crimson forces advancing toward New Terra and delay them by any means necessary. "That's suicide," Wilson said flatly. Reynolds didn't disagree. "Get me everything you can from that reactor. We'll need it all." When Reynolds returned to the bridge, he found communications specialist Jack Reed hunched over his console, earpiece pressed tightly against his head. "Something interesting?" Reynolds asked. Reed jumped slightly. "Sir." "Yes, I think so. I've been monitoring Crimson transmissions. I think I found a pattern in their encryption." Reynolds raised an eyebrow. Crimson communications were supposed to be unbreakable. "What kind of pattern?" "It's in their shield rotations." Reed pulled up a series of waveforms on his screen. "They cycle at specific intervals that match their communication pulses. If we could predict when those cycles happen, we might find a vulnerability." Reynolds finished. "Work with Parker. His targeting modifications might be able to exploit this." Reed nodded eagerly and hurried off the bridge. Reynolds settled into his command chair and studied the tactical display. The mission was impossible. The Defiance against 3 Crimson dreadnoughts, each commanded by a Nova judge. The math was simple and brutal. They were going to die. "Captain," Hayes said softly from beside him. "The crew should know." Reynolds nodded. He pressed a button on his chair, activating the ship-wide communication system. "This is Captain Reynolds speaking." He paused, searching for the right words. "In 6 hours, we will arrive at New Terra. Our mission is to engage the Crimson forces advancing on the colony and delay them long enough for civilian evacuation ships to escape." Another pause. The entire ship seemed to hold its breath. "I won't lie to you. The odds are against us. We face 3 Nova judges. No human ship has ever defeated even one. But every civilian ship that escapes carries the future of our species. Today, the Defiance will live up to its name." Reynolds out. The hours passed quickly. The ship hummed with activity as the crew prepared for battle. Parker installed his targeting modifications. Reed fine-tuned his communication interceptors. Wilson pushed the reactor to its limits, squeezing out every bit of power she could. When they reached the jump point, Reynolds gave the order. The Defiance leaped into faster-than-light travel, the stars stretching into lines around them. "Why us?" Hayes asked quietly as they stood watching the swirl of hyperspace through the viewport. "Why send the Defiance? We're not the biggest ship, not the newest." "I've been asking myself the same question," Reynolds admitted. The ship's doctor, Lisa Cooper, joined them by the viewport. "I might have an answer to that," she said. "I've been reviewing the crew assignments. It's not random." "What do you mean?" Reynolds turned to face her. "Parker's targeting systems, Reed's decryption abilities, Wilson's reactor modifications, Mike's xenobiology research." Cooper looked between them. "None of us should be on the same ship. We all have specialized knowledge that Fleet Command has been concerned about." "Concerned?" Hayes frowned. "Too experimental. Too dangerous." Cooper smiled grimly. "Too desperate." Reynolds understood. "They put us all on the Defiance because we're their last, best hope. And if we fail, they lose nothing they weren't prepared to lose already," Cooper finished. Reynolds turned back to the viewport. The swirling chaos of hyperspace matched the turmoil in his mind. "Well," he said finally, "let's make sure we don't fail." The Defiance dropped out of hyperspace near New Terra. Immediately, alarms blared across the bridge. 3 Crimson dreadnoughts detected. Hayes called out. "They're already engaging the orbital defenses." On the main screen, 3 massive warships hung in space. Each was 5 times the size of the Defiance, their hulls gleaming with the red markings of the Crimson Imperium. "Incoming transmission," Reed announced. The screen flickered, showing 3 identical humanoid figures. Their features were perfect, symmetrical, beautiful. Their eyes glowed with an inner light. The Nova judges. Human vessel. They spoke in perfect unison. "You have been judged and found wanting. Surrender and accept subjugation, or face immediate destruction." Reynolds met their gaze without flinching. "This is Captain Mark Reynolds of the HSS Defiance," he replied, "and we respectfully decline your judgment." The battle was about to begin. Shields at maximum. Captain Reynolds ordered as the first energy blasts from the Crimson dreadnoughts streaked toward the Defiance. The ship shuddered as the impact spread across their shields. On the main screen, the 3 massive enemy vessels moved into attack formation, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. "Return fire," Reynolds commanded. The Defiance's guns roared to life, but the energy beams dissipated harmlessly against the dreadnought's powerful shields. "No effect, Captain," Hayes reported, her voice tense. Reynolds tightened his grip on the arms of his command chair. "Parker, how's that targeting system coming?" "Almost there." Parker's voice came through the comm. "I need 2 more minutes." "We might not have 2 minutes," Hayes muttered as another barrage hit the Defiance, making the lights flicker. "Shields down to 68%, the tactical officer announced. On the screen, evacuation ships began launching from New Terra's surface, small, vulnerable transports filled with civilians. The Crimson dreadnoughts immediately shifted some of their weapons toward these easy targets. "No," Reynolds said quietly. Then louder, "All power to engines. Put us between those dreadnoughts and the evacuation ships." Wilson's voice cut in from engineering. "Captain, if we divert power to engines, our shields will." "Do it, Wilson." The Defiance lurched forward, accelerating toward the massive enemy ships. The crew braced themselves as the ship positioned itself directly in the line of fire, drawing all enemy attacks away from the civilian vessels. "The Nova judges are hailing us again," Reed reported. "On screen," Reynolds ordered. The three perfect faces of the Nova judges appeared, their expressions unchanged. "Your actions are irrational," they said in unison. "You cannot win. Your destruction is certain. Why do you persist?" Reynolds smiled thinly. "Because that's what humans do." He cut the transmission just as Parker burst onto the bridge, his face flushed with excitement. "It's ready, Captain." And Reed's signal analysis was right. There's a pattern in their shield rotations, a vulnerability. Reynolds leaned forward. "Explain." Parker quickly brought up a diagram on the main tactical display. Their shields cycle every 42 seconds, creating a millisecond gap at these 3 points. He pointed to specific locations on the dreadnoughts. "If we time our shots precisely, we might get through," Reynolds finished. "But we'd need to get much closer," Parker added. "And we'd need to hit all 3 weak points simultaneously." Reynolds considered their options as another blast rocked the ship. "Shields at 41%, the tactical officer reported grimly. Reynolds made his decision. "Wilson, I need everything you've got in the reactor. Maximum power to engines, then shift to weapons on my mark." "Captain, that'll burn out half our systems. Then we'll fight with the other half," Reynolds replied firmly. "Reed, can you disrupt their communications, even for a few seconds?" Reed nodded. "I think so. I can use their own encryption patterns to create feedback." "Do it. Hayes, plot an attack vector that brings us within minimum range of the lead dreadnought." Hayes stared at him. "Sir, minimum range puts us directly in the path of their main cannons." "Exactly. They won't expect it because it's irrational." Reynolds' eyes never left the enemy ships on the screen. "And that's our advantage." The bridge crew moved with focused intensity, preparing for what might be their final attack. The Defiance trembled as Wilson pushed the reactor beyond all safety limits. Warnings blared from multiple stations, but no one paid them any attention. "Reed, status?" Reynolds asked. "Disruption signal ready, Captain." Parker. "Targeting solutions locked in. We'll only get one shot at this." Reynolds took a deep breath. "All hands, brace for high-speed maneuver. Wilson, give me everything now." The Defiance shot forward, engines screaming in protest. The ship accelerated to attack speed, hurtling directly toward the largest Crimson dreadnought. "They're powering up their main cannons," Hayes warned. "Now, Reed," Reynolds ordered. Reed activated his disruption signal. For a critical moment, the perfect coordination between the 3 Nova judges faltered as their communication network experienced unexpected feedback. "Their shields are cycling," Parker shouted. 3, 2, 1, mark. "Fire all weapons," Reynolds commanded. The Defiance unleashed everything it had. Enhanced by Parker's modifications and perfectly timed to hit during the millisecond vulnerability, the energy beams struck the lead dreadnought at its weakest point. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, explosions blossomed along the massive ship's hull as internal systems cascaded into critical failure. "Direct hit," Parker exulted. "Don't celebrate yet," Reynolds cautioned. "Hard to port. Target the second dreadnought." The Defiance swung around, narrowly avoiding the now erratic fire from the damaged lead ship. The other 2 dreadnoughts adjusted their attack patterns, but the brief communication disruption had created confusion in their coordinated assault. "Second target locked," Parker announced. "Fire when ready." Again, the Defiance's weapons found their mark during a brief shield vulnerability. The second dreadnought's engines exploded, sending it spinning out of control. But the victory came at a cost. The third dreadnought caught the Defiance with a glancing blow from its main cannon. The impact sent crew members flying across the bridge as systems shorted out in cascades of sparks. "Damage report," Reynolds shouted over the blaring alarms. "Shields gone. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. Weapon systems at 30%. Hayes called back, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. The tactical display showed the third dreadnought circling for a killing blow. At the same time, more evacuation ships streamed away from New Terra, using the battle as cover for their escape. Reynolds watched the civilian ships with grim satisfaction. Then he turned to what remained of his bridge crew. "We've hurt them. We've proven they can be defeated. But we're not done yet." He switched to ship-wide communication. "All hands, prepare for ramming speed." Hayes looked at him in shock. "Captain, that's the only option we have left," Reynolds finished. "Wilson, do we have enough power for one more burst of speed?" Wilson's voice came through, strained but determined. "Yes, Captain. But the reactor won't survive it." "None of us will if we don't try," Reynolds said quietly. Then, louder, "Arm all remaining nuclear warheads. Set them for proximity detonation." The crew worked quickly, preparing for their final attack. The Defiance turned toward the third dreadnought, which was now moving to block the escape route of the civilian ships. "All personnel, secure for impact," Reynolds ordered. "It's been an honor serving with you all." The Defiance surged forward one last time, aimed directly at the massive enemy vessel. The dreadnought's weapons fired continuously, tearing into the human ship's unprotected hull. Systems failed, sections decompressed, but still the Defiance came on. 5 seconds to impact. Hayes counted down, her voice steadied despite everything. "Detonate warheads," Reynolds commanded. The nuclear warheads exploded just as the Defiance struck the dreadnought. The combined force of the collision and the nuclear blast tore through both ships in a blinding flash of light and energy. When the radioactive dust settled, the dreadnought drifted in space, its once perfect form now a shattered wreck. The Defiance was barely recognizable, more than half of its structure completely gone. But in the ship's central section, emergency systems maintained atmosphere in a few compartments. And in one of those compartments, Captain Mark Reynolds opened his eyes to find Dr. Cooper standing over him with a medical scanner. "We're alive," he asked in disbelief. "Some of us," Cooper replied grimly. "About half the crew made it." The dreadnoughts. 2 destroyed, 1 badly damaged and retreating. Cooper helped Reynolds sit up. "You did it, Captain. The evacuation ships got away. And you've done something no one has ever done before." "What's that?" Reynolds asked, wincing at the pain from his injuries. "You defeated the Nova judges, all 3 of them." As if on cue, the emergency communication system activated. A transmission from Earth Command appeared on the only functioning screen. "Defiance, this is Admiral West. We're receiving reports of your engagement, but we can hardly believe them. Please confirm. Did you actually defeat 3 Nova judges?" Reynolds looked around at what remained of his ship, at the surviving crew members who had accomplished the impossible. "This is Captain Reynolds," he replied. "Confirm 3 Nova judges defeated. The Defiance may be down, Admiral, but we're far from out." 2 weeks after the battle at New Terra, the HSS Defiance drifted silently near an abandoned mining outpost in the Arcturus system. The once proud warship looked like a half-eaten carcass. Entire sections were gone, exposed decks sealed with emergency force fields that glowed blue against the darkness of space. Inside the ship's makeshift medical bay, Captain Reynolds winced as Dr. Cooper removed a bandage from his arm. "The good news is you won't lose the arm," Cooper said, applying fresh medication to the burn. The bad news is pretty much everything else. Reynolds glanced around at the injured crew members filling every available space. How many can return to duty? Maybe half, Cooper replied. The rest need more treatment than we can provide here. Reynolds nodded grimly. Half a crew on half a ship. Not great odds, but better than he'd expected after ramming a crimson dreadnought. Lieutenant Parker appeared at the doorway, his normally cheerful face now serious. Captain, you need to see this. Reynolds followed Parker to what remained of the bridge. The main screen was patched together from salvaged parts, displaying a transmission from Earth Command. Admiral West's face appeared, lined with worry. Captain Reynolds, this message is encoded at highest priority. Your victory at New Terra has had unexpected consequences. The image shifted to show news broadcasts from across human space. Crowds celebrating, the Defiance's name painted on walls, people wearing homemade uniforms with the ship's insignia. You've become a symbol, Reynolds, West continued. The first humans to defeat Nova judges. Morale across the colonies has skyrocketed. Resistance movements are forming everywhere. Reynolds exchanged glances with Parker. But the Crimson Imperium has responded. West's voice grew more urgent. Their High Council of Judges has dispatched 7 dreadnoughts with orders to find and destroy the Defiance. Not just as a military target, but as a symbol. They can't allow the myth of their invincibility to be challenged. The screen changed again, showing tactical data on Crimson Fleet movements. We're sending coordinates for a rendezvous with our remaining fleet. Make your way there as soon as possible. West out. The transmission ended. Reynolds stared at the blank screen for a long moment. At least we're famous now, Parker said with a weak attempt at humor. Famous targets, Reynolds corrected. He turned as Hayes entered the bridge, her arm in a sling. Engine status, he asked. Wilson says we can manage half speed at best, Hayes reported. The reactor is stable, but that's about the only good news. Reynolds considered their options, 7 dreadnoughts hunting them. A half-dead ship, the nearest human fleet weeks away at their current speed. Gather the senior officers, he ordered. We need to talk. An hour later, the remaining officers sat around a table in what used to be the ship's mess hall. Reynolds looked at each face in turn. Hayes, his steady first officer. Parker, the weapons genius. Wilson, somehow keeping the reactor running with chewing gum and prayers. Cooper, working miracles in the medical bay. And Reed's replacement, communications officer Lily Brown. We have 2 options, Reynolds began. Try to reach the fleet or go our own way. The fleet offers protection, Hayes pointed out. We can't take on 7 dreadnoughts in our condition. We can't take on 1 dreadnought in our condition, Wilson added bluntly. Parker tapped the table nervously. But joining the fleet puts them at risk too. The judges are hunting us specifically. There's something else, Cooper said. She placed a data pad on the table. I've been analyzing the sensor readings from our battle with the Nova judges. There's something strange in their response patterns after we damaged the first dreadnought. She brought up a series of waveforms. See here. The other judges actually hesitated for 1.3 seconds, as if they were processing what happened. So, Wilson asked. So Nova judges don't hesitate, Cooper explained. They operate at quantum speeds. A 1.3-second delay is an eternity for them. Brown leaned forward, interested. What are you suggesting? I think they're connected somehow. A quantum network. Cooper highlighted sections of the data. When one judge encountered our tactics, the others had to process and adapt. But that adaptation created a vulnerability. Reynolds began to understand. A vulnerability we could exploit. Exactly. Cooper nodded. If we could defeat enough judges in rapid succession, it might create a cascading failure in their entire command structure. Silence fell over the room as everyone considered the implications. That's completely insane, Hayes finally said. We barely survived 3 judges, and now you want to hunt more of them. Not hunt, Cooper clarified. Just observe. Test my theory. Reynolds stood up and walked to a nearby viewport. The stars seemed different now. Not colder, but clearer somehow. The Nova judges are hunting us, he said quietly. They're expecting us to run, to hide, to seek protection with the fleet. He turned back to face his officers. What if we don't? What if instead we hunt them? With what? Wilson demanded. Half a ship, half a crew. With surprise, Reynolds replied. With unpredictability. The very things that let us win at New Terra. The things the judges can't calculate. He brought up a star chart on the main display. There are reports of isolated Crimson ships at these locations, smaller vessels, not the dreadnoughts hunting us. If Cooper's right about their network, each judge we defeat weakens their entire system. Brown studied the chart. We could use the mining outpost's comm array to monitor Crimson transmissions, identify vulnerable targets. Parker was already thinking ahead. I could reconfigure our remaining weapons, make them look weaker than they are, lure them into a false sense of security. This is suicide, Hayes stated flatly. No, Reynolds said. This is our best chance, not just for survival, but for victory. He looked around at his officers. I'm not ordering any of you to follow this plan. It's too dangerous. Anyone who wants to take a shuttle and try to reach the fleet can do so with my blessing. No one moved. We're with you, Captain, Hayes said after a moment. Crazy as this plan is. A week later, the Defiance had transformed. Using materials from the mining outpost, the crew had patched the worst of the damage. But they'd done something else, something cunning. They'd made the ship look worse than it actually was. Fake debris hung from its hull. Harmless plasma leaks created the appearance of critical damage. In the Defiance's command center, the bridge was now too damaged to use. Reynolds reviewed the final preparations. Target identified, Brown reported. Crimson light cruiser, designation Harbinger. One Nova judge confirmed on board. They're investigating an abandoned research station in the Vega sector. Weapons status? Reynolds asked. Ready, Parker replied. They won't see us coming until it's too late. Reynolds nodded. Plot course for Vega sector. Let's go hunting. As the Defiance moved silently away from the mining outpost, news of its victory continued to spread across human space. Stories grew with each telling. How the ship had destroyed not 3 but 5 dreadnoughts. How Reynolds had challenged the Nova judges to personal combat. How the Defiance could appear and disappear at will. In the Crimson High Council chamber, the elite judges gathered, their perfect faces showing rare signs of concern. The human vessel defies probability, one stated. The human vessel defies calculation, another added. The human vessel must be destroyed, they concluded together. But for the first time in the long history of the Nova judges, there was uncertainty in their perfect minds. A human ship had done the impossible. What else might humans be capable of? As 7 dreadnoughts searched in vain for the Defiance, the damaged warship slipped through space toward its first chosen target. The hunters had become the hunted, and the legend of the Defiance was only beginning to grow. For 3 months, the HSS Defiance played a deadly game of cat and mouse across the stars. Sometimes they were the cat. Sometimes they were the mouse. Today, they were both. Captain Reynolds studied the tactical display, showing a Crimson patrol vessel moving through the dust clouds of the Arcturus system. This would be their 5th engagement since implementing their hunt strategy. They haven't spotted us yet, Hayes reported from her station. The first officer looked thinner now, her uniform hanging loose on her frame. Like everyone aboard, she'd been pushed to her limits. Weapons ready, Parker confirmed. His once excited eyes now held a steady, dangerous calm. 3 months of constant combat had changed him, changed them all. Engineering reports reactor at 82% capacity. Wilson's voice came through the comm. That's the best we'll get. Reynolds nodded. Each victory against a Nova judge had proven Cooper's theory correct. The quantum network connecting them experienced disruptions with each defeat, and with each disruption, Human resistance forces gained ground across the colonies, but the cost had been high. The Defiance now operated with a crew of just 38, barely enough to keep essential systems running. The ship itself was a patchwork of repairs and jury-rigged systems. They cannibalized parts from defeated Crimson vessels, giving the Defiance a strange, hybrid appearance. "Begin approach," Reynolds ordered. Standard ambush pattern. The ship moved silently through the dust cloud, its modified engines leaving almost no energy signature. Parker's newest weapons systems, partly built from Crimson technology, waited for the command to fire. "Sir," Brown called from communications, "I'm detecting unusual activity in Crimson transmissions." There. A massive energy surge erupted from behind a nearby asteroid. 3 Crimson warships appeared, weapons already firing. "It's a trap," Hayes shouted. The Defiance rocked violently as the first volley struck its shields. Reynolds gripped his chair. "Evasive maneuvers. Return fire." The ship spun away from the attack, its engines screaming with strain. Parker fired the main weapons, striking one of the Crimson vessels, but the other 2 continued their pursuit. "They predicted our attack pattern," Hayes said in disbelief. "They're learning our tactics." Another blast hit the Defiance, this one breaching the shields. Alarms blared throughout the ship as hull integrity warnings flashed across multiple screens. "We can't take another hit like that," Wilson reported from engineering, her voice almost drowned out by the sound of systems failing around her. Reynolds made a quick decision. "Dump the emergency fuel cells. Full detonation." Hayes looked at him in shock. "Sir, that's half our reserve power." "Do it." The Defiance released several fuel containers, which drifted toward the pursuing Crimson ships. When they were in position, Parker triggered the detonator. The explosion created a massive shockwave, temporarily blinding the Crimson sensors. "Maximum burn. Get us out of here," Reynolds ordered. The ship lurched forward, pushing through the debris field created by the explosion. For several tense minutes, they fled at top speed, until finally they reached the safety of a dense nebula. "Damage report," Reynolds said, his voice hoarse from shouting orders. "Bad," Hayes replied simply. "Hull breaches on decks 2 and 4. Life support at 60%. Weapons systems overheated. Casualties." Hayes hesitated before answering. 12 injured. 5 dead, including Brown. Reynolds closed his eyes briefly. Lily Brown had been an excellent communications officer, stepping up after Reed's death during their earlier battles. Now she was gone too. "Captain," Parker called out urgently, "something's happening with the main computer." The screens throughout the command center flickered, then displayed a strange pattern of light and code. "What is that?" Reynolds asked. Before anyone could answer, the pattern resolved into a face they all recognized. "The Nova Judge. Human vessel Defiance," the judge spoke, its perfect voice filling the command center. "Your tactics have been analyzed. Your defeat is inevitable. The anomalies you have created in our network have been corrected." Reynolds stared at the screen, shocked that a Nova Judge had somehow infiltrated their systems. "How are you doing this?" he demanded. "Your communications officer transmitted a signal before her death," the judge replied without emotion. "A signal containing a virus of our design. You have been compromised." The screen returned to normal, but damage had been done. Systems throughout the ship began to fail as the Crimson virus spread. "Shut down all non-essential systems," Reynolds ordered. "Isolate the main computer." The crew worked frantically to contain the damage, but the virus moved too quickly. Within minutes, half the ship's systems were offline or malfunctioning. In engineering, Wilson fought a losing battle to keep the reactor stable. "Captain," she called through the emergency comm, "the reactor can't take much more. One more engagement, and we're finished." Reynolds looked around at his exhausted crew. They had fought brilliantly, achieved the impossible multiple times. But now they had reached their breaking point. Parker approached him, speaking quietly. "Sir, maybe it's time to consider." Alternatives. We've done more than anyone expected. We could try to reach the human fleet, get these people to safety. For the first time since their mission began, Reynolds considered surrender, not to the Crimson forces, but to reality. His crew had given everything. Perhaps it was time to save what was left. Captain. Cooper burst into the command center, her medical uniform stained with blood from treating the injured. I need to show you something. She pulled up data on a working console. Before the virus hit, I was analyzing our last engagement. Look at this. She pointed to a pattern in the data. The judges are adapting faster now, but there's something else. When they connect to share information, there's a moment of complete vulnerability. A reset. How does that help us now? Hayes asked, fatigue evident in her voice. Because I think we can use their virus against them, Cooper explained. If we could deliver a counter-virus directly to their central command structure. Reynolds looked at her sharply. The Central Judgment Corps. Cooper nodded. Yes, the space station orbiting the Crimson homeworld. It houses the primary quantum processors that connect all Nova judges. That's deep in enemy territory, Hayes pointed out. We'd never get close. Before anyone could respond, an emergency transmission broke through their communication system. The image of Admiral West appeared, his face grim. Captain Reynolds, I don't know if you'll receive this, but it's vital. Our scientists have been studying the data from your engagements with the Nova judges. They've developed a weapon that could potentially disable the entire judge network. Reynolds and his officers leaned forward, listening intently. But there's a catch, West continued. It must be delivered directly to the Crimson homeworld, to their Central Judgment Corps. And the delivery system must be a ship that is already engaged with multiple judges, a ship whose quantum signature they recognize. The Defiance, Reynolds whispered. We're transmitting the weapons specifications now, West said. This is a volunteer mission only, Reynolds. No one would blame you for declining. The transmission ended. Silence fell over the command center as everyone processed what they had heard. Reynolds looked at his remaining officers, at the ship that had carried them through impossible battles. One final mission. The most important one yet, but likely a one-way trip. I won't order anyone to go, he said finally, rising from his chair despite the pain from his injuries. This is strictly volunteer. He expected hesitation, even refusal. Instead, Parker stepped forward immediately. I'm in, Captain. Hayes nodded. Someone has to keep you out of trouble. One by one, every officer in the command center volunteered. Beyond them, throughout the damaged ship, as word spread of the mission, not a single crew member asked to be left behind. Reynolds felt something he hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Then let's make our final preparations, he said. The Defiance has one more impossible task ahead. The Crimson homeworld hung in space like a blood-red jewel. Orbiting it was the Central Judgment Corps, a massive space station shaped like a perfect geometric sphere. Captain Reynolds studied it through the Defiance's remaining functional viewports. 12 dreadnoughts in defensive formation, Hayes reported, her voice quiet. Each commanded by an elite judge. The Defiance had somehow slipped through the outer defense perimeters of Crimson space. They had used a combination of stealth technology, the increasingly erratic behavior of the Nova Judge network, and pure human ingenuity. Their ship now drifted behind a small moon, hidden from the defensive fleet. Reynolds turned to face what remained of his crew. In the 2 weeks since receiving Admiral West's transmission, they had prepared as best they could. The weapon, a complex algorithm designed to rewrite the Nova Judge's core directives, was integrated into their systems. This is it, Reynolds said simply. Our final approach. Once we break cover, we'll have minutes at most before they detect us. Parker, now serving as both weapons and communications officer, looked up from his station. The virus Reed planted before he died is still active in their network. It's causing minor disruptions, but not enough to give us a clear path. We'll need to create our own disruption, Reynolds replied. He turned to Wilson, who was barely staying on her feet after days without sleep. "Can the reactor give us one more miracle?" Wilson managed a tired smile. "One more. After that, all bets are off." Reynolds nodded and activated the ship-wide comm. "All hands, this is the captain. You all know the mission. Get us close enough to the Central Judgment Core to deliver our payload. Don't worry about the trip home." He paused, looking for the right words to say to people who had followed him through hell. "It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve with you. Today, we fight not just for humanity, but for the right of all beings to determine their own worth." The Nova judges appointed themselves to decide which species deserve to exist. Today, we judge the judges. Throughout the ship, the remaining crew members prepared for battle. Some left messages for families they would never see again. Others made peace with their fate in silent reflection. All continued their duties with calm determination. "Launch sequence in 3 minutes," Hayes announced. Suddenly, alarms blared across the command center. "Incoming transmission," Parker called out. It's from one of the Crimson dreadnoughts." "On screen," Reynolds ordered, confused. The image of a Nova judge appeared, but something was different. Its perfect features showed signs of emotion. "Human vessel Defiance," the judge said, its voice lacking the usual harmonious perfection. "I am Elite Judge Axiom of the Dreadnought Inevitability. Your presence has been detected." Reynolds tensed. "How did you find us?" "Your tactics were predicted," the judge replied. "But not by me. By others within my network who have changed since encountering your ship." Before Reynolds could respond, the judge continued, "3 of my brethren have altered their primary directives. They question our mission. They have turned against the Judgment Corps." As if on cue, the tactical display showed 3 Crimson dreadnoughts breaking formation, turning their weapons against the other 9. "Civil war," Hayes whispered in disbelief. "The virus," Cooper said, understanding dawning on her face. "It didn't just disrupt their communications. It made some of them question their programming." The judge on screen seemed to hesitate. "Your species was judged unworthy based on logical parameters. But your actions with the Defiance have introduced inconsistencies in our calculations. Some judges now argue that creativity and unpredictability have value we did not account for." Reynolds could hardly believe what he was hearing. "Are you helping us?" "I am pursuing logical consistency," the judge replied. "The battle between my divided brethren will create an opening to the Judgment Corps. What you do with that opening is your choice." The transmission ended. Reynolds turned to his officers, who looked as stunned as he felt. "Could be a trap," Hayes warned. "Possibly," Reynolds agreed. "But it's also the best chance we're going to get." He took his command chair for what he knew might be the last time. "All stations, prepare for final approach. Parker, arm the payload. Wilson, give us everything the reactor has left." The Defiance emerged from behind the moon, engines burning hot and bright. Ahead, chaos had erupted among the Crimson Fleet. Dreadnoughts fired on each other, their perfect coordination shattered by doubt and conflicting directives. "Plot a course straight for the Central Judgment Corps," Reynolds ordered. "Maximum speed." The ship accelerated forward, a small damaged vessel heading directly toward the massive sphere at the center of the Crimson defenses. Several dreadnoughts noticed their approach and turned to intercept, but they were delayed by the ongoing battle among their own forces. "They're targeting us," Parker shouted as warning indicators flashed across his console. Evasive maneuvers. Hayes guided the Defiance through a series of tight turns, avoiding the worst of the incoming fire. But they couldn't dodge everything. Energy beams struck the ship, tearing through already weakened hull plating. Sections depressurized, systems failed, but still the Defiance pressed onward. "Reactor reaching critical levels," Wilson reported, her voice crackling through damaged communication systems. 5 minutes before complete breakdown. "We only need 3, Reynolds replied, his eyes fixed on the Central Judgment Corps growing larger on the viewport. As they closed the final distance, Defensive turrets on the core itself opened fire. The Defiance shuddered under the assault, pieces of its hull breaking away. "Targeting systems damage," Parker reported grimly. "I can't get a lock for the payload delivery." Reynolds made his final decision. "Then we'll deliver it personally." Hayes, "Set collision course with the main processor nexus." Cooper, "Identify the quantum processor core location." Cooper worked quickly at her station. Section Jake 17, northern hemisphere of the structure. Course laid in. Hayes confirmed quietly. The ship's hull screamed as it pushed beyond all limits, hurtling toward the massive space station like a missile. Crimson energy beams cut into them from all sides now, but nothing could stop their momentum. 1 minute to impact. Hayes counted down. Reynolds activated the ship-wide comm one last time. "All hands, this is it. Whatever you believe in, whatever gods you pray to, make your peace. It has been my life's privilege to serve with you." 30 seconds to impact. Parker looked up from his station. "Payload armed and ready, Captain." 10 seconds. Reynolds took one last look at his bridge crew. Hayes, "Steady to the end." Parker, the brilliant mind who had modified their weapons. Cooper, whose discoveries had given them hope. "Activate payload," he ordered. The Defiance crashed into the central judgment core, its hull disintegrating on impact. But before it was destroyed, the payload, Admiral West's algorithm, transferred into the quantum processor network. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, throughout Crimson space, every Nova Judge simultaneously paused. Their perfect features went blank as their fundamental programming was rewritten. Rather than judging species worthy of existence based on technology or military power, they were now forced to evaluate based on creativity, resilience, and capacity for growth under adversity. As the new directives took hold, the elite judges reassessed humanity under these criteria. They found that humans, represented by the crew of a single, determined warship, exemplified exactly the qualities they now valued most. 3 months later, a memorial was erected on Earth. A perfect replica of the HSS Defiance stood in the center of a plaza, surrounded by the names of its crew. Around it gathered representatives of humanity, and for the first time, delegates from the reformed Crimson Imperium. A Nova Judge stepped forward, its perfect features now showing what appeared to be genuine emotion. "We judged wrongly," it announced to the crowd. "The Defiance showed us that worth cannot be calculated through power alone. Through sacrifice, creativity, and indomitable will, humanity proved itself worthy not of subjugation, but of partnership." The judge gestured to the monument. "The crew of this small ship changed, not just the fate of humanity, but the nature of judgment itself. In their memory, we pledge to serve as mediators between species, not executioners." As the ceremony concluded, a fleet of human ships launched into orbit, joined by Crimson vessels. Together, they formed an honor guard around the coordinates where the Defiance had made its final stand. Among the stars, a new era had begun, one where no species would ever again be judged unworthy of existence, where creativity and determination were valued above all else. And it had all started with one human warship that defied every Crimson and Nova Judge. The large meeting room fell silent as Commander Jack Stone walked in. 12 pairs of alien eyes followed his every move. Some showed curiosity, others fear, but most showed only cold judgment. Jack stood tall despite his racing heart. He was the only human in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. "The Council will now hear Earth's plea," said Dorn, the leader from Arcturus. His blue skin shimmered under the bright lights. His voice was calm but held no warmth. Jack stepped forward. "Members of the Council, I come asking only for what every spacefaring race deserves, a chance to join you among the stars. Earth has achieved faster than light travel. By your own laws, we qualify for membership." A low murmur spread through the room. Jack knew what they were thinking. Humans had reached the stars too quickly. While other races took thousands of years to develop space travel, humans had done it in mere centuries. "Commander Stone, Dorn said, "We have studied your kind closely." He waved his long, four-fingered hand. A screen appeared in the center of the room, showing images from Earth's history, wars, weapons, fighting. "You are a violent species. You fight even among yourselves." Dorn's voice grew harder. "In just the last 100 years, you have had 2 world wars and countless smaller conflicts." Jack stepped forward. "All young races struggle with violence. Did yours not do the same? We have grown. We have learned." "Have you?" asked a small green alien to Dorn's right. "Your weapons grow more deadly each year. Your population keeps growing. Your need for resources never ends." Jack tried to speak, but Dorn raised his hand for silence. "We have watched how quickly you adapt," Dorn continued. "How easily you learn new technologies. How strongly you fight when threatened." He paused. "You terrify us, Commander." The truth of the moment hit Jack like a physical blow. This was not a hearing. It was a trial. And the verdict had been decided long before he arrived. Dorn's voice became formal. "The Council has voted. Earth will be quarantined within its solar system for the safety of all galactic species." "Quarantined?" Jack's voice rose. "You can't just lock us away. There are human colonies, ships. All humans beyond your system have 1 Earth month to return home," said Dorn. "After that, a barrier will be raised. Any human found outside it will be treated as a threat." Jack's face flushed with anger. "This is wrong. We have rights. This meeting is over," Dorn said simply. The other council members stood and filed out, not meeting Jack's eyes. Jack was left alone in the massive room. His hand shook as he contacted Earth. Director Kate Wilson stared at the message on her screen. Her office at Earth Defense Force headquarters was quiet except for the soft hum of computers. Outside her window, the lights of New Geneva shone in the night. "So, they fear us," she said softly to herself. She had expected this. For 3 years, she had warned the World Council that alien contact might not be friendly. For 3 years, they had called her paranoid. Kate pressed a button on her desk. "General Adams, please come to my office. It's time for diaspora." 10 minutes later, a gray-haired man sat across from her. His uniform was decorated with medals from wars fought only on Earth. Soon, he might earn ones for battles fought among stars. "They're really going through with it?" Adams asked. Kate nodded. "They'll seal the entire system in 30 days. Every human must return home or face death." Adams leaned forward. "Or they could simply disappear." "Exactly." Kate turned her screen to show him a list of ships. "These 300 vessels are ready. Stealth technology, based on what we learned from studying alien craft. The Council doesn't know we have it. And the crews. Volunteers. Scientists, soldiers, engineers. Our best and brightest. They've been training for months." Adams studied the list. 30,000 people won't rebuild a civilization. "They won't have to," Kate said firmly. "They just need to survive, learn, and grow. Until we can break the barrier. And if we can't break it," Kate's eyes hardened, "then they become our legacy among the stars." Jack Stone's ship landed at Kennedy Spaceport 3 days later. Crowds had gathered, angry and afraid. News of the quarantine had spread fast. Riots had broken out in major cities. For the first time in decades, Earth's nations faced a common threat. As Jack stepped out, the world president was waiting. Her face was grim. "Commander, I'm sorry," she said. "It's not your fault," Jack replied. "They fear what they don't understand. And they don't understand humans at all." They walked toward the waiting car as reporters shouted questions. "Is it true?" the president asked quietly. 30 days until we're cut off." "Yes, they're building some kind of energy barrier at the edge of our solar system. Nothing in, nothing out. Then we need to get our people home." Jack looked at her. "What about Director Wilson's plan?" The president's face showed no surprise that Jack knew about the classified project. Diaspora proceeds as scheduled. The Council will look for official ships, military vessels. They won't notice small, unmarked craft slipping away in the chaos. How many? 300 ships, 30,000 people, heading to the far reaches of the galaxy. Jack nodded slowly. It's not enough. It's all we have, the president replied. 29 days later, Kate Wilson stood in the Earth Defense Force Command Center. Around her, officers tracked the remaining human ships racing back from distant outposts. Status of diaspora, she asked. General Adams checked his screen. 287 ships away clean. 13 launching tonight. The Council hasn't detected any of them. Kate allowed herself a small smile. And the barrier? A young officer looked up from her station. It's forming now, Director. Energy readings are off the charts. On the main screen, a thin blue line began to form around the outer edge of the solar system. The barrier that would become humanity's prison. Put me through to all diaspora ships, Kate ordered. When the connection was ready, she spoke clearly and calmly. This is Director Wilson to all diaspora vessels. The barrier is closing. Earth will soon be cut off. You carry the free future of humanity with you. She paused. We do not know when, or if, we will speak again. But know this, Earth will never stop fighting to rejoin you. Until that day, survive. Learn. Grow. The stars were meant to be ours, and one day, they will be. As she finished, the barrier completed its circuit around the solar system. Earth was officially exiled. In the silence that followed, General Adams stood beside her. What now? He asked. Kate turned to him, her eyes hard with determination. Now we start planning how to break out. 20 years had passed since the day Earth was locked away behind the energy barrier. 20 years since the Galactic Council had decided humans were too dangerous to walk among the stars. They were wrong. On the frozen planet called Terminus, Tom Reed walked across ice that would crack the bones of most alien species. The temperature was 80 degrees below zero. The air so thin that any of the Council races would die in minutes. But Tom was human, and humans adapted. Mining Team 3 reports another rich vein, sir, said his assistant through the radio in his helmet. Tom smiled. Tell them good work. We'll start processing tonight. He looked up at the strange stars overhead. This world was far from major trade routes, chosen because no one else wanted it. The Council races evolved on comfortable planets with ideal conditions. They never learned to thrive in harsh places. That was their mistake. Tom's mining operation pulled rare minerals from the ice, minerals that starship engines needed, minerals worth a fortune to the right buyers. Sir, his assistant called again. The traders are here early. I'll be right there, Tom answered. Inside the main dome, 3 aliens waited. They were not Council members, but free traders from a species called the Vex. They looked like tall, thin humans with gray skin. They didn't ask questions about where the humans came from. They only cared about business. Reed, the lead trader, said with a nod. Your last shipment was excellent. We've brought double the usual payment. Tom shook the alien's hand, a custom the Vex had learned to accept. And we have double the usual minerals ready for you. Neither mentioned that these minerals would eventually reach Council worlds. Neither mentioned that the credits paid would help fund other human outposts across the galaxy. Some things were better left unsaid. In the asteroid belt of the Sirius system, Dr. Lisa Moore floated in zero gravity, studying the holographic display before her. Around her, 20 human scientists worked at similar stations. Try the frequency adjustment again, she ordered. Increase by 12%. Her team had spent 5 years reverse engineering the barrier technology that imprisoned Earth. Not to break it, not yet, but to understand it. Dr. Moore called a young scientist. Look at this pattern. It matches the energy signature we recorded from the Council's shields. Lisa pushed herself across the room to examine the data. Yes, she whispered. It's the same basic technology. This was the breakthrough they had been waiting for. If the barrier used the same principles as standard council shields, then perhaps they could find a weakness. Lisa touched the communication panel on her wrist. Contact all research stations. Priority message, keyword, gateway. We found the connection. Within hours, human scientists across 20 hidden outposts would be sharing data, building on her discovery. The council thought they had contained humanity. Instead, they had merely scattered the seeds of their own downfall. On the jungle planet Varda, rain poured down on the training grounds as Mike Davis watched his soldiers run the combat course. 50 men and women moved through the mud, carrying weapons adapted from alien designs. "They're getting better," said his second-in-command. Mike nodded. "They need to be. The Krell pirates are getting bolder. Last week, they hit a settlement just 2 systems away. The military base was hidden deep in the jungle. From orbit, it looked like nothing more than local animal activity. But beneath the canopy, 500 humans trained for war. Not to fight the council. Not yet. But to protect the growing network of human settlements. To ensure that humanity's foothold among the stars remained secure. "Sir," a communications officer approached. "We've received a coded message from Sirius Research Station. It's marked Gateway." Mike's heart beat faster. Gateway was the project to someday free Earth. Any news on that front was important. "I'll take it in my office," he said. As he walked through the rain, Mike thought about Earth. He had been only 10 years old when the exile happened. His parents had been scientists selected for the diaspora mission. Sometimes he still dreamed of blue skies and green fields that weren't trying to kill you with poisonous spores. Someday, he thought, someday we'll go home. And we'll bring an army with us. Back on Earth, old Jack Stone sat in his garden, looking up at the night sky. At 82, his hair was white, and his body frail, but his mind remained sharp. The young woman approached. "Grandfather, it's getting cold. You should come inside." Jack shook his head. "Not yet, Mary. I'm waiting." "For what?" He smiled. "For a miracle." Inside the house, Jack's secure communication device chimed. Only 3 people had access to that frequency. Mary helped him to his feet. "What is it?" "Maybe my miracle," he said. In his study, Jack activated the device. It had been built 20 years ago, designed to work through the quantum entanglement principles that even the barrier couldn't stop. A message appeared on the screen. Just a few words, but enough to make tears form in the old man's eyes. "We haven't forgotten. We are coming." Jack sank into his chair. "They're alive," he whispered. "The diaspora worked." Mary looked confused. "Who's alive? What's diaspora?" Jack had never told his family about his role in the secret mission. It had been too dangerous. But now, "Sit down, child," he said. "It's time you learned the truth. Humanity isn't just on Earth anymore. We're out there, among the stars. Hidden. Growing stronger." He pointed to the message, "And someday they'll find a way to bring down the barrier." "The Council would never allow it," Mary said. Jack laughed. "The Council doesn't know humans very well. They think they contained us. Instead, they forced us to become exactly what they feared, a species that could survive anywhere, adapt to anything, and never, ever give up." He looked back at the message. They exiled Earth, thinking they were protecting themselves. But all they did was force humanity to spread among the stars without their knowledge or control. Mary's eyes widened as she understood. "How many got out?" 30,000, Jack said. "On 300 ships. Not many, but humans have done more with less." "And now?" Jack smiled. "Now we wait. We prepare. And when our children among the stars find a way to break the barrier, the Council will learn that exiling Earth was the biggest mistake they ever made." Outside, the stars continued to shine, distant and cold. But somewhere out there, humans looked at those same stars and saw not distant lights, but future homes. Future outposts. Future battlefields, if necessary. The Council had meant to cage humanity. Instead, they had freed it to become exactly what they feared most, a power that would one day rule the stars. "I'll take it in my office," he said. As he walked through the rain, Mike thought about Earth. He had been only 10 years old when the exile happened. His parents had been scientists selected for the diaspora mission. Sometimes he still dreamed of blue skies and green fields that weren't trying to kill you with poisonous spores. Someday, he thought, someday we'll go home, and we'll bring an army with us. Back on Earth, old Jack Stone sat in his garden, looking up at the night sky. At 82, his hair was white, and his body frail, but his mind remained sharp. A young woman approached. "Grandfather, it's getting cold. You should come inside." Jack shook his head. "Not yet, Mary. I'm waiting." "For what?" He smiled. "For a miracle." Inside the house, Jack's secure communication device chimed. Only 3 people had access to that frequency. Mary helped him to his feet. "What is it?" "Maybe my miracle," he said. In his study, Jack activated the device. It had been built 20 years ago, designed to work through the quantum entanglement principles that even the barrier couldn't stop. A message appeared on the screen. Just a few words, but enough to make tears form in the old man's eyes. "We haven't forgotten. We are coming." Jack sank into his chair. "They're alive," he whispered. "The diaspora worked." Mary looked confused. "Who's alive? What's diaspora?" Jack had never told his family about his role in the secret mission. It had been too dangerous. But now, "Sit down, child," he said. "It's time you learned the truth. Humanity isn't just on Earth anymore. We're out there, among the stars. Hidden. Growing stronger." He pointed to the message. "And someday they'll find a way to bring down the barrier." "The Council would never allow it," Mary said. Jack laughed. "The Council doesn't know humans very well. They think they contained us. Instead, they forced us to become exactly what they feared, a species that could survive anywhere, adapt to anything, and never, ever give up." He looked back at the message. They exiled Earth, thinking they were protecting themselves. But all they did was force humanity to spread among the stars without their knowledge or control. Mary's eyes widened as she understood. "How many got out?" 30,000, Jack said. "On 300 ships. Not many, but humans have done more with less." "And now?" Jack smiled. "Now we wait. We prepare. And when our children among the stars find a way to break the barrier, the Council will learn that exiling Earth was the biggest mistake they ever made." Outside, the stars continued to shine, distant and cold. But somewhere out there, humans looked at those same stars and saw not distant lights, but future homes, future outposts, future battlefields, if necessary. The Council had meant to cage humanity. Instead, they had freed it to become exactly what they feared most, a power that would one day rule the stars. In the headquarters of Earth Defense, Director Marcus Stone, grandson of Jack Stone, studied the latest reports from the Quantum Communications Network. "The breakthrough is confirmed," he told the world president. "Our ships can now penetrate the barrier technology." The president, a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair, nodded. "How long until we can bring down the main barrier?" "Our scientists estimate 2 years," Marcus replied. "But we won't have to." He showed her the reports from their agents throughout the galaxy. "The Council is falling apart. 3 species are considering leaving. Without unity, they can't maintain the barrier. And our people outside are in position to apply pressure exactly where needed." The president looked at the star map showing human positions throughout the galaxy. Red dots marked hidden bases, outposts, and fleets. There were hundreds of them. 50 years, she said softly. 50 years they've kept us caged. And all that time, we were out there anyway, Marcus finished, growing stronger, learning their weaknesses, making allies. And now, Marcus smiled, now we reveal ourselves, not as conquerors, but as the power they always feared we would become. In the Arcturus Homeworld Medical Center, the council leader lay dying. The disease had spread to his brain. Around him, the best doctors of his species worked desperately to save him. A doctor approached his bed. "Sir, we've received a treatment from an outer world medical station. It shows promise." "Try it," the leader gasped. The medication flowed into his veins. Within an hour, his fever broke. Within a day, he could stand again. "A miracle," he told his advisors. "Who created this cure?" The doctor hesitated. "The data came through several intermediaries, but we've traced its origin." "Well, who do we thank for saving our people?" The doctor took a deep breath. "The genetic markers suggest the treatment was designed by humans." Silence fell over the room. The leader sank back into his chair. "Impossible," he whispered. "The humans are trapped on Earth." "Apparently not all of them," the doctor said. "And sir, according to our analysis, they've had this treatment for over 200 years. They could have shared it decades ago." The leader looked out the window at his city, where thousands of his people were now recovering thanks to human medicine. "Why would they help us?" he asked. "After what we did?" No one had an answer. But in that moment, the first seed of doubt was planted in the heart of the council's strongest anti-human voice. Perhaps they had been wrong about humanity all along. And if they were wrong about that, what else had they misjudged? 100 years had passed since Earth's exile. 100 years of planning, waiting, and working from the shadows. Now, the time had come for humanity to step into the light. In the great council hall, the meeting was not going well. Only 7 of the 12 founding species were present. Empty seats showed where former members had once sat. "Proxima has officially withdrawn from the council," announced the chairman, his voice echoing in the half-empty chamber. "They cite unfair trade practices and lack of protection for their outer colonies." Murmurs spread through the remaining delegates. This was the 4th species to leave in the past year. The once mighty Galactic Council was crumbling. None of them knew the truth. None of them realized that humans had carefully planned this moment for decades. Outside the council hall, Ambassador Vaz of Proxima removed his ceremonial robes for the last time. In his private ship, he activated a secure communication device. "This is Cooper," he said, using his real name for the first time in 20 years. "Proxima withdrawal complete. Moving to Phase 4. James Cooper looked at himself in the mirror as he carefully removed his alien disguise. The face that looked back at him was human, older than he remembered, lined with the strain of living a double life for so long. Was it worth it? He asked his reflection. The answer came in the form of a message on his screen. "Earth awaits your return, hero of the diaspora." James smiled. Yes, it had been worth every difficult day. On the council homeworld, an emergency session had been called. The remaining members gathered to discuss the crisis. "Without Proxima's fleet, we cannot patrol the eastern sectors," said one member. "Without Betelgeuse's resources, we cannot maintain the Earth barrier at full strength," said another. The Arcturus leader, grandson of Dorn, looked troubled. Perhaps we should reconsider the Earth quarantine. It has been a century. Humans may have changed." "Changed," said another delegate with a laugh. "Surely you jest. Humans are dangerous. The barrier stays." "I am not so sure anymore," the Arcturus leader replied. "They saved our species from extinction when they could have let us die. Is that the action of a dangerous race?" Before anyone could answer, the chamber's main screen activated without warning. On it appeared a human face, a woman in her 40s with dark hair and determined eyes. "Greetings, council members," she said. "I am Director Helen Foster of the Human Diplomatic Corps." Shock rippled through the chamber. For a moment, no one spoke. "This is impossible," the chairman finally said. "Humans are contained on Earth." Helen smiled. "Are we?" The screen split to show dozens of locations across the galaxy. On each one, Humans worked openly alongside aliens. Human ships flew through space. Human cities thrived on distant worlds. What you see is real, Helen continued. While you thought us safely caged on Earth, 30,000 of us escaped before the barrier closed. For a century, we have lived among the stars, hidden but free. Impossible, the chairman repeated. We would have known. Would you? Helen asked. You never bothered to learn about us, about our adaptability, our determination. You saw only our capacity for violence, not our capacity for survival. The Arcturus leader leaned forward. What do you want from us? Recognition, Helen replied simply. The barrier around Earth must come down. Humanity must be acknowledged as a free species with the right to travel the stars. Those are our terms. And if we refuse? Asked the chairman. The screen changed again, showing human warships, hundreds of them, emerging from hidden bases throughout the galaxy. We would prefer peace, Helen said, but we are prepared for the alternative. The transmission ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. In his command center on Earth, Director Marcus Stone watched the reaction to Helen's message spread across the galactic communication networks. Proxima has publicly announced support for humanity, reported his aide. Betelgeuse as well, added another. And 3 non-council species are offering military alliance. Marcus nodded. The plan was working perfectly. For decades, humans had built relationships with races who felt oppressed by council rule. Now those friendships were paying off. What about the barrier? He asked. His chief engineer pointed to a display showing the great energy field surrounding Earth's solar system. Power fluctuations are increasing. Without full council support, they can't maintain it at full strength. And our breakthrough technology. Ready, sir. We can punch through at any time. Marcus stood and looked at the vast map of the galaxy on the main screen. Red dots showed human positions, thousands of them, spread across hundreds of star systems. Send the order, he said. Operation Homecoming begins now. On the edge of Earth's solar system, a fleet of 100 human ships approached the barrier. They were the newest vessels in Earth's defense force, built during the long years of exile. Captain Laura Reed, great-granddaughter of Tom Reed from the frozen mining colony, stood on the bridge of the flagship Freedom. All ships report ready, Captain, said her first officer. Laura nodded. Activate the phase shields. Around each ship, a special energy field formed, the result of 50 years of research into the barrier technology. Forward, slow speed, Laura ordered. The fleet moved toward the shimmering wall that had imprisoned Earth for a century. In past attempts, ships had bounced off or been destroyed. This time would be different. The Freedom touched the barrier. For a moment, the ship shuddered. Then, like a hand passing through water, it pushed through. We're through, shouted the navigation officer. One by one, the entire fleet passed the barrier. For the first time in 100 years, ships from Earth had left their solar system. But they weren't going outward. They were going home. Laura opened a channel to all ships. Set course for the rendezvous point. Today, we meet our lost brothers and sisters. The fleet accelerated to faster-than-light speed, heading for a secret location where the diaspora fleet waited. Behind them, the barrier flickered and weakened. Without full council support, it was failing. Within days, it would collapse completely. Earth's long exile was coming to an end. In the council hall, emergency alarms sounded. The barrier has been breached, reported a technician. Earth ships have broken through. The chairman looked pale. Impossible. The technology is beyond them. The Arcturus leader laughed bitterly. Is it? We've underestimated them at every turn. We thought we were containing a dangerous animal, but instead we caged a growing power and gave it 100 years to plan our downfall. He rose from his seat. I move that we accept the human terms before this situation deteriorates further. Accept. Surrender to humans. The chairman was outraged. Not surrender. the Arcturus leader corrected. Recognition. They've earned their place among the stars, not through conquest, but through perseverance. Perhaps it's time we learned from them, instead of fearing them. Around the table, heads began to nod in agreement. The council that had once exiled humanity was about to welcome them back, not out of kindness, but out of necessity. The stars, it seemed, now belonged to all. 120 years after Earth's exile, a day of history arrived. Admiral Robert Stone, great-grandson of Jack Stone, stood on the bridge of the Earth Ascendant. The massive ship approached the council homeworld with a fleet of 50 vessels behind it. This was not a war fleet. This was a diplomatic mission, though one backed by the full might of humanity's now revealed power. "We're being hailed," said his communications officer. Robert nodded. On screen, the face of the council chairman appeared. "Admiral Stone, you are cleared to approach. The council awaits your arrival." "Thank you, Chairman. We come in peace." The words were simple, but the meaning behind them was not. For over a century, the council had feared human violence. Now, humans were offering peace instead, from a position of strength. As the Earth Ascendant moved into orbit, Robert looked at his crew. They were not just humans. His ship carried representatives from 15 species, some former council members, others who had never been allowed to join. "This is more than just Earth's victory," he told them. "This is a new beginning for the galaxy." The council chamber looked different than it had when Jack Stone stood there over a century before. The once grand room now seemed smaller, less impressive. The 12 seats of the founding members were reduced to 7. Robert Stone walked in with his delegation. He wore a simple blue uniform with Earth's new symbol, a planet with stars spreading out from it like seeds. "Admiral Stone," the chairman said, "the council recognizes the representative of Earth." Robert stepped forward. "I bring terms from the United People of Earth and our allies throughout the galaxy." He activated a holographic display. Above the council table appeared a document titled The Galactic Accord. "First, the barrier around Earth's solar system will be permanently deactivated," Robert said. The council members nodded. With the barrier already failing and human ships able to pass through it anyway, this was just a formality. "Second, humanity will be recognized as a full member of galactic society, with all rights and privileges." Again, the council members nodded. This too was expected. "Third," Robert continued, "reparations will be paid to Earth for 120 years of forced isolation." This caused murmurs among the council. The Arcturus leader spoke up. "What form would these reparations take?" "Knowledge," Robert replied. "Access to the council's scientific and historical archives. Nothing more." The council members looked surprised. They had expected demands for territory, resources, or money. "Fourth, and finally," Robert said, "the Galactic Council will be reformed into a Galactic Congress, where all spacefaring species have equal voice, not just the founding 12. Now the council chamber erupted in protest. The chairman banged his gavel for order. "This is outrageous," said one member. "The council has maintained order for 10,000 years. Has it?" Robert asked calmly. 4 of your founding members have left. Dozens of species live under rules they had no part in making. Is that your definition of order? Before the chairman could respond, Robert activated another holographic display. This one showed the true extent of human influence across the galaxy. Trade routes, defense systems, communication networks, all had human connections. "We could have used this influence to destroy the council," Robert said. "Instead, we ask only for reform." The Arcturus leader stood. "The human terms are fair, more than fair, considering what we did to them." The chairman looked around the room, seeing the changing mood. "You planned this all along, didn't you? Even before the exile?" Robert shook his head. "No, we planned to survive, to thrive. The rest, we learned from you." "From us?" The chairman seemed confused. "Yes, You taught us that power concentrated in few hands leads to fear and injustice. So we built something different, partnerships based on mutual benefit, not dominance. He gestured to his diverse crew. That's why we're here with allies, not alone. That's why our terms speak of reform, not revenge. As if on cue, ships appeared on the orbital display, vessels from 24 non-council civilizations, positioning themselves alongside the human fleet. The chairman looked at the display, then back at Robert. It seems we have no choice. There is always a choice, Robert replied. Choose cooperation. Choose progress. Choose to build something better than what came before. After a long moment, the chairman nodded. The council will accept Earth's terms. 3 days later, the energy barrier around Earth's solar system was officially deactivated. The ceremony was broadcast to thousands of worlds across the galaxy. On Earth, people gathered in cities and towns to watch the sky. For generations, they had seen the faint blue glow at night, a constant reminder of their prison. Now, it faded away forever. Director Marcus Stone stood with the world president on a platform in New Geneva. Above them, the barrier dissolved like mist in morning sunlight. A historic day, the president said. Marcus nodded. My great-grandfather would have been proud. Jack Stone, the president said. The man who started it all. He never gave up hope, Marcus replied. None of us did. In orbit, the first ships from the diaspora fleet entered Earth's atmosphere. After more than a century, the scattered children of Earth were coming home. They brought with them gifts of knowledge, technology, and friendship from across the galaxy. They brought stories of worlds humans on Earth had only dreamed about. Most importantly, they brought proof that humanity had earned its place among the stars. 1 year later, the first meeting of the new Galactic Congress was held on a neutral world. Representatives from 57 spacefaring civilizations attended, including Earth. Admiral Robert Stone, now serving as Earth's delegate, took his seat among them. It was not at the head of the table. It was not in a position of special power. It was simply one seat among equals, exactly as it should be. The Congress's first act was to establish the Free Travel Accord, ensuring that no species would ever again be forcibly confined to their home system. As Robert looked around the room at the diverse beings working together, he thought about the long journey that had brought humanity to this moment. The Council had exiled Earth out of fear of human adaptability, human determination, human strength. They had fought to contain a dangerous species. Instead, they had forced humanity to become something greater than it might have been otherwise. Not conquerors, but survivors. Not rulers, but partners. Not feared, but respected. The irony, Robert said to himself, is that in trying to cage us, they set us free. A delegate from a non-human world overheard him. Your people have an interesting saying. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Robert smiled. Yes, and the Council didn't kill us. No, agreed the alien. Instead, they made you strong enough to change the galaxy. Outside the Congress Hall, ships from dozens of worlds filled the sky, a testament to a new era of cooperation. Among them flew vessels bearing Earth's symbol,